On today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, we'll be discussing the Florida Panthers' 4-2 win on the road against the New Jersey Devils. And the Panthers lost Aleksander Barkov at the end of the first period. We're going to discuss how the Florida Panthers got this win and where the Florida Panthers go from there, as well as previewing tonight's game between the Florida Panthers and the Boston Bruins, all on today's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Monday, December 19th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez, and you can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. Don't forget to also follow the other shows on the Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Steel Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. And we are going to be having another giveaway here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. We'll be giving away 2 free tickets to the Florida Panthers versus Vancouver Canucks game on Saturday, December 14th at FLA Live Arena. How to enter is screenshotting your subscription to the Locked On Florida Panthers YouTube channel and your 5-star rating on whichever podcast app that you listen to Locked On Panthers, once again, to win 2 free tickets to the Florida Panthers versus Vancouver Canucks game on January 14th. So good luck to everybody. So the Florida Panthers, like we spoke about at the top, a 4-2 win on Saturday night versus the New Jersey Devils. If you're wondering why this recording is released a little bit later, I just finished watching the game between the Panthers and the Devils this morning on Monday. So saw it 2 days later, saw all the reactions, saw all the takes about everything that went on. So didn't get to see a live reaction of everything that went on, good and bad. And I took an opportunity to see the Trans-Siberian Orchestra for the very first time on Saturday night, and it was one hell of a show. It took me so long to go see them live, and I might just make that an annual thing after this year. Just a show that I recommend everybody to go see if you haven't given yourself an opportunity to do so. But after watching the game, seeing the reactions, especially from the Barkov injury, which we'll get later into the show, very impressed by how the Florida Panthers looked on Saturday night. I mean, despite losing the puck early and Bob having to stop multiple odd man rushes. I mean, Randy Moeller had a quote in the middle of the broadcast talk saying how you don't want to be in a track meet with the New Jersey Devils, one of the fastest teams. I mean, Jay Fresh Hockey, even the day after the game, once again tweeted all the expected goals per 60. Number 1 and 2, the Panthers and the Devils, with the Panthers just coming into number 2 right behind New Jersey. I mean, Bob stopping odd man rushes, even one laying on his back where Brandon Montour was saying "woo," and because Sergei Bobrovsky has just been so incredible since starting against the Detroit Red Wings, and he started really every game since. And after a few minutes, they're exchanging rushes. Even Ryan Lomberg got multiple rushes, and one after the power play goal. And Panthers getting a power play goal for the first time in the last 5 games, even though after the goal, which was originally given by Matthew Tkachuk, went off this skate, I believe Sharon Govich. So they were Panthers were starting to eliminate more of those opportunities for the New Jersey Devils after New Jersey really generating chances off the rush. I mean, after the first period, the Bally Sports broadcast mentioned about the the chances off the cycle, and New Jersey had nothing on the cycle while Panthers had 6. So controlling a lot of the puck possession, their own zone, not getting their one and dones as well. So Panthers, they were generating quite a bit, and more importantly, the first goal. The one thing that we've talked about so much throughout the last few weeks about the trends of when the Panthers score first. And Ekblad and Forsling, man, that pair was the two of the best players on the ice for the Panthers. I mean, multiple times you saw a rush chance, and then either Ekblad was poking a puck away or diving to get to not allow the New Jersey Devils to get a shot on goal, and they were winning board battles later on into the period. Barkov was closing in on a few rushes as well. And let's get since we're still kind of talking about the first period, let's talk about the face-off between Nico Hischer and Alexander Barkov, which you look at the replay again. Nico Hischer's eyes are not on Barkov's leg. A little bit reckless, but not intentional. Do I think there should have been a penalty there? I think there should have. And the Panthers, I really liked the way that they came out of the tunnel to start the second period, just going after Nico Hischer. No penalties though, as they were coming out of the ice, but that kind of course, there's going to be a little bit of a delay in messaging to the Bally Sports broadcast, all the media people there at the time, of the status of Alexander Barkov, whether he was going to return to that game or not. He was a little bit slow getting up and eventually skated off the ice under his own power. It was encouraging, but just that reaction says it all. It's like, okay, is or how long, but it's just, you could just, the players might have gotten a little look of what might have happened, and Barkov explaining to his teammates how he felt, but it's just a little reckless by the captain of the New Jersey Devils. I mean, we talked about the guys going after him: Matthew Tkachuk, Mark Stahl, Nick Cousins, all going, and you had to see quite a few line changes. I mean, Dalpe was going on the second line, Eetu Luostarinen was going back to center and going on the first line as well, and Sergei Bobrovsky continuing to be sharp. I mean, let's look at the last 6 games for Bob. You might see 3-3-0. Remember, goalie wins are not stats here, but .923 save percentage, 2.34 GAA. And those are games where you give up 4 against the Lightning, 5 against the Kraken, 4 against the Pittsburgh Penguins, all in that span too. But then you see performances against the Red Wings, Blue Jackets, even most recently against the New Jersey Devils, which Bob didn't get a star of the game in this one, weirdly enough. But he was just as impactful in this as can be. And let's also give credit to the call-up line as well. Aggressive on the forecheck, Alexi Heponiemi getting it to Zach Dalpe, who eventually getting it to Gustav Forsling, and Gustav Forsling being rewarded with a goal after so many great defensive plays for the Panthers. I mean, New Jersey was also they were not doing themselves any favors by so many open opportunities as well. I mean, Dawson Mercer missing in the slot, Jack Hughes as well later in that period. And speaking of Dawson Mercer, let's talk about the goalie interference. And I knew that once I saw the replay of the game, that was going to count based on what I saw, the Twitter reactions and all that stuff too. And I thought it was not goalie interference for a different reason. And it was the fact that Bob's skate was slightly out of the crease, and Dawson Mercer's skate caught Bob's. But seeing that the replay officials deemed that it was Eric Stahl's stick that got Bob, I really don't know what they saw there. But I do think it's the correct call. Just I don't like the explanation of the call, and it's just really unfortunate. John Marino took advantage of that shot from the blue line just after seeing that Sergei Bobrovsky was down. But I also don't dislike the challenge neither, because you just never know. The initial call matters, obviously, but if you have if it's that close to the blue paint, you take a chance. And even with the delay of game penalty for the Panthers penalty kill was just outstanding on that one. Ekblad on that one was just incredible as well. Forsling once again another opportunity that he was able to stop. I mean, I don't think that the Devils were got a shot on goal in that one. There was a shorthanded rush by Eetu Luostarinen and Eric Stahl, even though it didn't generate a shot on goal. Ekblad was the deflecting passes on the PK, very positionally sound. We complained about Aaron Ekblad back in the previous game against the Penguins, but then we saw the Aaron Ekblad that we saw in the Columbus game as well. We saw that back for the Panthers. I mean, and you know, Aaron Ekblad rewarded as well with an assist on the goal that Sam Reinhart deflected in. 2 goals on the night for Sam Reinhart. Let's not forget that this guy got off to another rough start for the Panthers and then got it going. Same thing happened last year. So this is a trend going to the first 2 seasons of Sam Reinhart's tenure with the Panthers. I mean, and after that was when the Devils were starting to control play too. And also the amount of jabs that they put at Nico Hischer every single time that the Panthers were stripping the puck from him. We saw Aaron Ekblad do it. We saw Ryan Lomberg do it. We saw Brandon Montour taking a few jabs at Nico Hischer. But also the Panthers were surrounding the crease around Sergei Bobrovsky, protecting him later in that third period. But here's the thing, if I had one thing to complain about Saturday night, it's just really about how that last power play for the Panthers was conducted. I feel like the Panthers were trying to waste more time than to try to generate high danger chances on the last power play. And then as soon as the penalty ends, they come out right back on the ice. The puck is right behind the goal, like near the trapezoid, and then the Panthers caught puck watching, and then former Florida Panther Eric Haula gets the goal to bring it to 3-2. And the first thing I thought of was, with how that power play looked and them scoring, Panthers had to do better with generating chances at least. I'm not saying that they would have gotten a goal to extend it to 4-1 at the time, but that was a 2-goal swing. It felt, at least it felt like to me once I rewatched it. But Grigori Denisenko, even prior to the empty net goal, he had a beautiful opportunity on a rush as the Panthers gained the zone. Sam Bennett gets it to him and he gets it off the post. But then even Grigori Denisenko in the last one, and this was after an icing, and Lindy Ruff calling a timeout with tired Panthers on the ice, and the Panthers were able to still get the puck out of the zone, arrested Panthers team that had an icing, chip it up the boards, and Carver Hagee gets it for the 4-2 win for the Panthers. A great road win. And listen, they caught the Devils at the right time. They're facing their backup goaltender in Akira Schmid as well. They lost their captain as well. While Hughes and Hischer were just generating a whole bunch of chances. Dougie Hamilton had a big chance on Sergei Bobrovsky right on the blue paint on a rush, and they come out with a dub, and just a well-disciplined game, and one that they had to shift a little bit. People playing more minutes on the forward lines as well, and they found a way, and that's a good win for this Panthers team. Just continuing the ups and downs, and again, it's not sunshines and rainbows. Once again, getting a win despite being a really good team, a division leader as of right now, and you hope that this carries into Boston on Monday. But in segment number 2, we're going to discuss more about Aleksander Barkov's injury, what happened, give a little bit more opinions on it as well. And then segment number 3, we'll be previewing their game against the Boston Bruins on Monday night. So keep it right here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're going to tell you all about Athletic Greens. And our next partner is a product that I literally use every day. And I started taking AG1 because sometimes I need a little bit of a break from the coffee. A little bit too much coffee can make me feel a little anxious, so I've transitioned over to Athletic Greens. So what is this stuff? With one delicious scoop of AG1, you're absorbing 75 high-quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start the day off right. This special blend of ingredients supports your gut health, nervous system, and immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging. All the things. Right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. With just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's no need for a million different pills, supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you 1 year of free supply of immune supporting vitamin D with 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. Back on this Monday, December 19th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, where the Florida Panthers are coming off a 4-2 win over the weekend against the New Jersey Devils. A road win, which the Panthers have really struggled this year. They're, I believe, one game under 500 after this one. So, this was the time last year where the Panthers were struggling on the road. One win, I believe they had one win in like a month and a half span last year on the road. So right now they're 2 games under 500, 7-9-1 on the road. Last 10, 5-5-0. So as up and down as can be. And let's talk about the Aleksander Barkov injury. Once again, I don't believe it was intentional, but you're not just going to come out of that locker room. You're just not going to be like, okay, our captain's out. This guy didn't do it on purpose. And we're just going to leave it alone. No. That is the heart and soul of your team, the most important player. And it was a reckless play. It was careless. And you had to come out of that locker room and make a statement. Not saying to purposely hurt Nico Hischer. We don't want that in our league. We want that taken out of all sports. But the way the Panthers responded to coming out of the locker room to stand up for their captain, I mean, Barkov's about to surpass Huberdeau for the most points in franchise history, most game franchise history as well. So this guy's really important to the team, and I believe he's 1 power play goal away from being the all-time leader in power play goals for the Panthers as well. So what Barkov's meant over the last 9 years, and the injury struggle, the illness that he had earlier this season that had him miss a good chunk of games. Even last year, having a lower body injury and then an upper body injury after the St. Louis game. It's been a tough few years for the guys who you deem as the most important players on your team. And we've talked a whole bunch about Ekblad the last 2 years with lower body injuries, and then one earlier this season that had him out for 10 plus games. And just the Panthers just unable to catch a break at times, but still being able to, regardless of all of that, still put in a great position to still win. And unfortunately, I don't have an update on what the latest is. They said that he'll be reevaluated on Sunday. And I'm right now, as I'm looking at my clock on my laptop, I see 10:11 a.m. on a Monday morning. The Panthers morning skate today is at 11:30 at TD Garden. So we won't know anything about Aleksander Barkov, whether he's on the ice, whether he's going to play. But that reaction just immediately, once they got out of the locker room, just said it all. That it could be for a while that the Panthers could be without their captain. I'm not sure about any LTIR status, if that's going to be the case for Barkov. I don't know, but it was a cross check to the near the knee / shin, and when it bends a certain way, that's just scary. It's you don't ever want to see someone go through that. And I was in the building when Tom Wilson tore his ACL, and we didn't know what the extent of that was during last year's first round when Tom Wilson of the Washington Capitals tore his ACL. I still believe that he's not playing for the Caps. I believe he's still a few months away. I mean, that was back in May. We're in December now. That's a 6 to 8 month recovery. So he's likely not on the ice for the Caps, but still, it's I hope it's just a sprain. Nothing more than that. But once again, Barkov going off the ice under his own power. I mean, he was laying on his knees for quite a bit. A little bit hard to catch his breath too. But and the I don't know if we would call this the worst part. More like the crazy part of that is that the Panthers face off against this Devils team less than a week after that happens. So what do the Panthers do when they welcome the New Jersey Devils this Wednesday to FLA Live Arena? And it's going to be a nationally televised game too on TNT. So what will Nico Hischer be booed every single time he touches the puck? I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised. Intentional or not, you were involved in the play. It was reckless. You used Barkov's leg to try to get some separation with the puck. I mean, if it's your glove if you're using the glove part on the top part of the knee, no harm, no foul. No, I wouldn't really care. But that's the part of the stick like jabbing at the leg, and that hurts. That really hurts. I hope none of you get if any of you played hockey, then you know how painful that was. People who play hockey and even people who play lacrosse know how much it hurts to just even when someone's riding you, when you're defending them, that putting equal pressure, you feel it. But on a face-off where you're trying to get some separation and you're just continuing to put force on it, and the camera the camera angle doesn't show too much of the leg being bent a certain way. You can't really tell too much. But it wasn't bent naturally, obviously. Not breaking, not telling you anything new here. But if you saw the replay, you see, after him being slow to get up. And that's just, it's really hard to see. It's another blow for this team. And we'll know more in just a little over an hour. By the time this drops, you guys will probably know what the update is, and we'll discuss obviously more about it on the recap show for tomorrow's episode of Locked On Panthers, as the Panthers have a Monday game against the Boston Bruins at TD Garden, and the Panthers are looking for another win against the Boston Bruins, where they are 1-1-0 against them this season. So in segment number 3, we are going to be discussing the Florida Panthers game tonight versus the Boston Bruins. So Keep it right here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Your Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Third and final segment on this Monday, December 19th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. And the Panthers, despite all that, they have a game to play tonight. And actually, hold on. I want to get this thought out before discussing tonight's game. I forgot to mention that the Florida Panthers were doing their dad's trip. The Florida Panthers dads doing a trip to on this 2-game roader to New Jersey and Boston. And the interview, oh my goodness, the interview with Brandon Montour's dad, Cam, was just as cringeworthy as can be. And credit to Katie Engelson for keeping it together with Cam Montour's responses being as dry as can be. You can tell he did not want to be there. You can tell he just wanted to give all these one-worded and Katie just firing question after question and being able to just come up with another one, which talking about the time he got drafted, to being traded to Florida from the Buffalo Sabres, to helping people in the indigenous community as well, and Cam Montour just not caring about it. And I would have rathered him say, I don't want to be a part of this interview, and get someone else versus the interview that he did. But I want to give lots of credit to Katie Engelson on that interview. I was just like, it was cringy. It was very, very cringy after. But hey, Brandon Montour having such an incredible season for the Panthers. I mean, during the Columbus game, I mean, we once again, even in a part that Paul Maurice didn't necessarily need to put out there, he ended his interview saying Montour's been great. Like, he could have named any player, and he specifically about Brandon Montour. I mean, think about the amount of logged minutes that Brandon Montour has gotten this season in an increased role, especially when Aaron Ekblad was out. And let's actually use that as a segue to talk about this game, because that was the start of Aaron Ekblad's injury earlier this season. I mean, only the third game of the season where the Florida Panthers went into the Garden, and Brandon Montour missed that game too. Panthers were down to four defensemen at one point in that game, and made that game close. It felt like a game that was lost after that injury. I mean, and the Panthers still found a way to challenge the Bruins, and the Bruins did get an empty net goal. I mean, Jake DeBrusk was great. David Pastrnak was great in that one. Patrice Bergeron as well. I mean, and still finding a way to at least make it a respectable game. And you talk about then the second go round where the Panthers go 3 for 7 on the power play. Jeremy Swayman making his first ever start against the Panthers at that time. Though the Panthers did give up their fair share of special teams goals to the Boston Bruins, the Panthers were just in very much control of that game from the beginning. And yeah, sure, the Boston Bruins tied it later in the first period from Charlie McAvoy. I believe that was just one of the first few games back that he was for the Boston Bruins. I mean, of course, you know that he's going to be a problem. We spoke about David Pastrnak again, which he's going to get a hell of a payday for the Bruins. So just those two power play goals, the Panthers got up to a big lead at that point, up by 3 goals at most. And yeah, the Panthers, that was at that time, that right before Thanksgiving, that was the possibly season changing win for the Panthers. But then that was the start of the blown leads against St. Louis, Edmonton. not showing up in Calgary, then finishing off the road trip somewhat strong with those 5-1 wins over Vancouver, Seattle, and then the injury bug really starting prior to Winnipeg as well. But ever since, the key to these past few games, even though it's been 500, 3-3-0 for the Panthers, has been just goaltending. Sergei Bobrovsky. I mean, like we spoke about in the last 6 games, what Sergei Bobrovsky's numbers were. I mean, his numbers are starting to get closer to a 900 save percentage. Right. I mean, right now he's at 894 as well. Spencer Knight hasn't started a game since the Winnipeg game, and he's been good. He's been healthy enough to be a backup for the Panthers. I mean, maybe this is what the Panthers wanted as far as the splits as well, even though it was unforced with Spencer being sick. You're still getting the amount of starts for Bob to still prove himself to be the $10 million man that he was paid to be. And I don't know who starts tonight, but you might see a little bit of a rest for Sergei Bobrovsky tonight, as he's just been incredible. But also the fact that the Panthers are facing the Devils a second time, you might see Bob go tonight and then put a different goalie in for the game against the Devils on Wednesday. Same thing with the Devils, with them putting Akira Schmid on Saturday, and they have a back-to-back in Carolina and Florida. The Panthers will be getting the Devils on the second end of a back-to-back, which is something noteworthy for the Cats. And the Bruins just come off a big Saturday afternoon win against the New Jersey Devils, lost at home to the LA Kings. They haven't lost at home. They've only lost at home twice all season, and both of their losses this season have been in the shootout. So going into this game, it's gonna be a tough one. You kept it close the first go round in the third game of the season, but the Panthers have been neck and neck in their first 2 matchups with Boston, and I'm not counting on Aleksander Barkov to play. But with how the Bruins have been firing on all cylinders this season, getting great goaltending by likely the guy who's the favorite to win the Vezina right now in Linus Ullmark. I mean, just listen to these numbers: 938 save percentage, 183 goals against average, and 2 shutouts, 17-1-1. And best penalty kill in the NHL, third best power play, first in goals against, and second in goals for. So it's a complete team as we speak. Bergeron's back for a 1-year deal. David Krejci's back as well. I mean, Bergeron, the complete 200-foot player. Even though it's a cliche saying it, and I try to avoid using that because it's just so overused in hockey, but it's true for Patrice Bergeron. And DeBrusk getting a new coach really changed his game. And of course, Pasternak, like we spoke about, playing in a contract year. Marchand, McAvoy, just they have everything on that team. And again, it's that team that doesn't go away, no matter how many times you want to. Once again, their over-under for the season was at 95.5. And I hope that none of you guys touched that. Or if you did, that you went on the over. Because that was just a team that you were scratching your head because you didn't know what you were going to get out of them. But only 2 losses for the Bruins at home, both of them being shootouts. They have the record for the most games without losing at home. The Panthers are actually tied for second before losing to the Seattle Kraken at home last season. But the Boston Bruins just broke that record this season. So it's a tough environment, tough place to play, likely without your captain. We don't know the status on Anton Lundell and Ratko Gudas. They didn't play once again. And but Radko Gudas seems to be a little closer to returning, so you'll get that's big for the Panthers lineup. So hopefully the Panthers will be closer to being healthy, even though they just took another blow health wise for this team. But on tomorrow's show, we are going to be recapping the Florida Panthers versus Boston Bruins game on a rare Tuesday post game edition of the show. And despite the Panthers losing the first go round, they kept it close and then picking up a win at home. So I'm expecting another close game between these two. But if I had to be realistic, I'm expecting a loss in this one. But hopefully I am wrong about this for the Panthers. It's just my gut feeling based on all the ups and downs that we've seen for the Florida Panthers this season. But in the meantime, if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Make sure to subscribe to all the shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for your second listen of the day, make sure to listen to today's episode of Locked On Sports Today. Locked On Sports Today gives you a daily 20-minute or less podcast on the entirety of the sports scene with exclusive interviews and the take of the day. Locked On Sports Today available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get podcasts. So I'm Armando Velez, signing off. And you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.